Hello and welcome. Today we're on Ableism Watch. Yes, we are looking at all things ableist that have gone on in Australian media recently, and we have some real bad offenders to check out today. This one is from Pauline Hanson, an independent Australian politician who has an animated series on YouTube called Pauline Hanson's Please Explain. Today, Pauline Hanson would like to look at the NDIS, as she calls it the National Disability Insurance Scam, although what it really stands for is the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Pauline is going to make an argument that this particular program that we have in this country is wasteful, unnecessary, and a scam on the Australian system. And I'm here to watch the video, react, and maybe give a little rebuttal as to why that's complete horseshit. Sorry, Pauline, but you got to get called out. You know, before we get into the video, I don't want the video to define exactly what the NDIS is. So I'll give you a quick definition myself. And I also want to make a disclaimer. I personally make my living off of the NDIS. I am a disability support worker. I get paid through the NDIS, through money that is funded by the NDIS. I don't work directly for them. And I actually think that's one of the ways it's kind of a good program. Now, for those unaware who haven't heard of the NDIS, basically what it is, it's like, think of like a specific Medicare style program that is explicitly for people with disabilities. It's supposed to provide things like disability support, mobility support, therapy, physical therapy, things that you might need to help integrate into society and access society in a better way. And so the NDIS stands in our country as this program that represents people with disabilities and disability support workers and how we can facilitate them to live in our society in a way that is as harmonious as possible. And I'll be the first to say, as someone who gets paid by the NDIS, it is not perfect. And I certainly have criticisms, but my criticisms are not ableist trash like Pauline's criticisms are. And we're going to dive into exactly what's wrong with Pauline's criticisms. But just quickly before we jump into the video, I do want to show a couple of headlines here that show that this was roundly condemned. We have here news.com.au. Even the Murdoch family knows. Pauline Hanson slammed over depiction of NDIS in Please Explain video. The Guardian here, One Nation video mocking NDIS condemned as vile by disability advocates. Once again, we've got SBS News here saying Pauline Hanson criticized over repugnant video about disability scheme. People know society is not as accepting towards people with disability as it should be or as it could be. But I do think people are aware enough to see something as insane and ridiculous as this video that we're about to watch. And they know that something's up. They know that this is like wildly disrespectful and unnecessary. So let's find out what these news articles are talking about and jump into the video. We're going to watch it in sort of 10 to 20 second snippets so we can break it down. I don't want to get copyrighted by Pauline. So without further ado, let's jump into the video and get into it. And for anyone who may be potentially offended or triggered by like super ableist comments, you know, you don't have to watch this one. You can just skip it and come back for the next one. If you want to see me dunk on an ableist, stick along for the ride, but just a fair warning going in. So we've got Phil Crook Hospital.
Peter, Susan.
Doctor, how is it?
Is it okay? I have good news and I have bad news. The bad news is your party was absolutely smashed over the weekend in Aston. Destroyed.
Yes, but what's the good news?
Just to give you some context as to what that's referring to, there was a by-election in a place called Aston where the Liberals were expecting to win. The Liberals is a political party in Australia, and I believe they lost that seat to the Labor Party, which is the other mainstream political party in Australia. And for some extra context, the Liberal Party has slowly but surely been losing every state in Australia. Currently, every single state on the mainland of Australia is run by a Labor government, which has kind of been a result of the past couple of years of state elections where Labor has just kind of done really well. So that's sort of the context with regards to what they're referring to here.
Well, the extent of the damage is so bad that the Liberal Party could be permanently damaged. It may never be able to stand on its own 2 feet again. It's completely crippled. How is that good?
Okay, this is so crazy. And I want to bring up the fact that he just used the word crippled in a video about disabilities. Like that's like straight up basically a slur. I mean, like you can't say that. And also what I find interesting here is that the subtitles don't show the word crippled. So I feel like even the subtitles is like, dog, we can't be saying that. So he calls the Liberal Party crippled and goes on to say this.
Well, it means the Liberal Party now qualifies for the NDIS. The NDIS? The National Disability Insurance Scheme, yes.
Yeah, because it's so easy to slip up and, let people know that actually it's a whole scam. Uh-oh. Now, this is where I do want to point to the Guardian article quickly. Firstly, this video by Pauline was released on Good Friday. This video inspires hatred against disabled people and is a particularly nasty and vile depiction of the lives of highly vulnerable people with disability, released on Good Friday, which is a day of love and reflection for many people. That's just bonkers and crazy. I mean, and just to give you some context with regards to Pauline Hanson, like she is in theory all about, religious freedom and protecting the rights of those who are religious and respecting religion. But this is also Pauline Hanson. She dressed in a full-ass burqa into the Australian Parliament because to say that she hates Muslims, I guess. Not quite the best when it comes to a track record of, respecting religious days. One other point, the fact that NDIS is supposedly a scam. It says here, we know we are actually more likely to be the victims of scams, poor services, and ripoffs by services and businesses seeking to profit from disabled people. And that is actually a really, really good point. People with disabilities are far more likely to be the targets of scams than the perpetrators of one. It's complete insanity to make it out like the NDIS is a scam, because when you do that, like the NDIS represents people. There are people, workers and people who live with disabilities on the NDIS. That's who they're represented, and that's who you're calling, a scam, which is crazy. Okay, let's get back to the video.
Are you permanently disabled? Congratulations! You now qualify.
No, dude. Oh, wow. Okay, so needless to say, that's totally crazy. Like, they have a guy rock up in a wheelchair. I want to say, I don't know who this is supposed to be. I could be wrong, but I think it's supposed to be this guy, Bill Shorten. I think, because he had a hand in establishing the NDIS. And so I think that's who they're supposed to be making fun of here. But I can't even tell. Like, the satire is so dense and dumb. I can't even tell exactly who they're supposed to be satirizing because it's so offensive that I can't even see the joke. Like, what? Oh, and the other thing, that guy that I showed you, Bill Shorten, he doesn't use a wheelchair. He's not disabled. Like, there's no reason this character, even if they're satirizing him, should be in a wheelchair. It's just ableism. They just think like, oh, it would be funny to put this character in a wheelchair. That's really what they're thinking here, and it sucks.
NDIS, brought to you by Labor.
That's right, the same geniuses that brought some of the biggest budget blowouts this country has ever seen comes out.
Oh boy. Okay, so for those unaware, this character here is Anthony Albanese. He's our prime minister. This is what he be looking like. He's pretty average looking white dude, whatever. But it is worth pointing out, he does not, nor has he ever had, as far as I can tell, a lisp or a speech impediment. And for some reason, this video chooses to give our prime minister a speech impediment in the form of a lisp as a joke. I guess because that's a funny joke. Haha, he talks funny. Like, what?
Brought some of the biggest budget blowouts this country has ever seen.
I also want to point out, they say NDIS brought to you by Labor, which is not inaccurate. I mean, Labor did establish the NDIS, but the NDIS is not inherently a political or one-sided organization. I'm sure they service plenty of people with disabilities who vote Liberal, who vote One Nation, who vote, the shooting and fishing party. Like, the NDIS doesn't care who you vote for or what your political affiliations are. The NDIS's job is just to serve anyone who has a disability and needs support so that they can access our society. That is the point. Oh boy. And also this whole, like, the biggest budget blast. What do you mean? Like, Labor is, I hate to break it to you folks at home, Labor is a pretty fiscally conservative party. They're not out here like saying, let's raise welfare, let's crazy. They don't want to build like a crap load of houses, which is what we should be doing. They don't want to be giving more welfare to people. They don't want to raise job seeker. Like, Labor is not this cash happy, splashing cash around party that their critics make them out to be. I just think that's odd.
Comes our fastest growing expense yet.
The NDIS cost is almost unfair.
Oh, I see. So they're referencing their MBN and what is this? Pink bats? I actually don't know what that is. Oh, okay. Wow. So if we type in pink bats controversy, we get here, Royal Commission into the home insulation program. 2 workers died as a result of electrocution installing foil-lined insulation. Okay. So I guess it was like a program that had a tragic outcome. Good reference there, Pauline. Whoa.
The NDIS cost is almost unfathomable. $35 billion per year. That's just $100 million a day.
Okay. So what I really have to point out here, and what just absolutely annoys me to all hell. What this guy says here, he's like,
almost unfathomable. $35 billion per year. That's
okay, $35 billion a year.
$100 million a day.
It's like, whoa, you found another way to represent a certain amount of money in a certain period of time. It's like, dude, 35 billion a year, 100, who cares? Like, it's a number, man. It's a number of money. You know what's a really big number? This number. How can Australia, this is from ABC News, right? How can Australia pay 368 billion for new submarines? This is metal. It's a boat. And then it literally says here, some of the money will be created from thin air. Okay, when we have to pay for military capabilities, when we have to pay for boats, then, you know, we can just find the money. Then we can just make up the money out of nowhere. One of the taglines literally says, governments create money. It's like, okay, so you love to say that whenever it's about buying military equipment, submarines, spending money to like military contractors, these private military organizations who just want to sell us dumb ass military equipment. But then when it comes to paying for people and workers and society and an actual functioning economy, then, it's way too much. That's $100 million a day. Whoa! Shut up. Just shut up. Yeah, it's so crazy. The other thing I really do want to hammer on this, because a lot of people will say, oh, Dan, well, you know, $100 million a day is quite a lot of money. I don't mean to get mad at this, but it's like, that money is not just a big pile of burning cash. That money is not a big money pit. That money is workers, facilities, and people who need support. It's people who need therapies and people who need OT sessions and all these kinds of things. And that stuff doesn't just cost nothing. Like, that stuff costs money. Workers need to be paid. Modified vehicles need to be purchased. Hubs and places like housing need to be secured for people who have disabilities. Like, it's insane to think that there's going to be no cost to that stuff. It's going to have a cost. And in my opinion, if the cost that we spend on those services gives us like a healthy, accessible, harmonious society, well, then it's worth spending the money. Like, what else are we supposed to spend money on if it's not to provide security, housing, you know, accessibility to our citizens, which includes the people who access the NDIS and also all of the people who, like me, get paid by the NDIS, make their daily living off of funding provided by the NDIS. It creates jobs, it creates economies, it does things to our society that you could make a pretty good argument are beneficial to our society. And so, yes, we spend money on it, but it's like, we spend money on all sorts of things. How much money do we spend on allowing rich people to deduct a crap load of money off their taxes? There's so much money that we allow to slosh around, and this is what you have a problem with? Really? This money that actually is probably one of the best ways you could funnel money directly back into the community. What do you think people with disabilities spend money on? They spend money back into the community. What do you think the workers who work on NDIS spend their income on? They spend it back into the community. This money, they're implying that it's just either this massive handout or this big burning money pit. And it's neither of those. So sorry for getting heated there. I really had to make that clear.
We're growing by $75 million every single month and adding a new person to the NDIS every 6 minutes.
Okay, so that's probably not true. I'm not even going to check those statistics because they don't give any sources for those statistics whatsoever. Let's say if those statistics are true, right? Let's see what it says. A new person every 6 minutes. I think that's kind of crazy. That's probably not true. But also, like, you know that there are people who are waiting to access NDIS. There are people who have needed support for years probably and are only just getting signed up now or are only just about to sign up. Like the NDIS is not creating people with disabilities every 6 minutes. They're just meeting the needs that existed in our society of people who had not previously been able to have those needs met. Oh, this video it's going to give me a headache.
And we are lowering the bar for what's considered disabled. Stubbed your toe? That's a physical impairment. Having trouble...
Is this video supposed to be a joke? Like, what is the point? Are they trying to explain? Because this whole, like, obviously, anyone knows you can't get any sort of disability compensation for stubbing your toe. Like, what? That's just so dumb. It's like they were doing the script and they had to fill time and they were like, yeah, let's just, whatever, just put that one in.
Having trouble concentrating? You're psychosocially disabled.
Okay, so that's really crazy, that last one. And I do want to address this because I am someone who dealing with ADHD. And there's a lot of people who deal with ADHD, trouble concentrating, have legitimate neurodivergence. And also this term psychosocially disabled. Who says that? People don't talk that way. Trust me. I work in the disability sector. I see a therapist. I've never been called psychosocially disabled. The implication is that if you just have trouble concentrating, it's as significant as an inconvenience as stubbing your toe, which is completely insane. That's so stupid. People who legitimately have trouble concentrating, like it can be debilitating. It can make it really hard to do the things that you want to do and partake in the activities you want to partake in, do the jobs you want to do. Like it can be an actually difficult thing to deal with, even something as simple as the inability to concentrate. And this instinct to like downplay it and shit on it, is crazy. Also, stubbing your toe and like not being able to concentrate, those don't even have anything to do with NDIS. Even if someone has, say, ADHD or they have an inability concentrating, their treatment plan is going to include talking to a GP, talking to a psychotherapist, talking to all these different people. They're not going to be on the NDIS. Like this is just a complete misnomer. It has nothing to do with the topic. It's just an excuse to shit on anyone with like any amount of neurodivergence. They're like, if you're not normal, get fucked.
Voted for the Greens? Get in here with your cognitive disability. There's plenty of room.
It's not a terrible joke. I'm not going to forgive this one, but this one is the most obviously like a traditional joke, like set up punchline, haha, but still it's like, okay, you're just bringing up completely random, unrelated things to make the video longer, I guess, because you want to spend more time not actually talking about anything to do with what the NDIS actually is. Okay.
And because it was unhappy from the very beginning, the NDIS is going to be our biggest blowout yet.
Okay, so that's the other thing that they say it was uncapped from the beginning and it's going to be a massive blowout. It's like, okay, something that you really need to be able to acknowledge is that money represents people, right? That money represents workers and people who receive service. If you reduce that money or even say eliminate that money, you don't reduce or eliminate the amount of people represented by that money. And so if you put that money like way down, you're basically saying we're going to have a systemic policy of underfunding people with disabilities, giving them less money than they need to survive in society. You should be able to comprehend, right, that if that money was low enough to a point and there's still a certain amount of people on NDIS, there can be a possible scenario where you're literally starving these people by giving them less money than they need to spend to live their life. You have to give them an appropriate amount of money. And by the way, people with disabilities get the disability pension, which in my opinion is too low. Like I don't even think that's high enough. But the disability pension is not through NDIS. That's through Centrelink. So this idea that it's like a blowout, and again, if it is a blowout, it's going towards workers who are getting paid to do the services and companies who are getting paid to establish vehicle charters and little hubs and residential places for people to stay. Like it's just, it's so dumb. This whole argument is based on the idea of like lots of money, bad, and it's like big number, bad, money, big number, bad, money, small number, good. That's their whole argument.
Capped from the very beginning, the NDIS is going to be our biggest blowout yet. Even this guy could see that coming.
Okay, I'm waiting for the punchline.
Oh my God, dude. Why are you like this? The guy's blind. Why? Why do you need to use him as a punchline? Like, that's insane. We get it. Wow. This is boomer humor, for one. Like, it's just straight up like 1950s style humor. Hey, even my pal Jimmy couldn't see that one. He lost his vision in the coal mines working as a child. It's like, what the hell? Stop. Just stop.
Available on the NDIS. We've got soundbars, tarot readings, sex workers. Looks like reasonable and necessary services to me.
Okay, so I want to highlight this frame for a second because the person that they're showing here, this guy is the first disabled senator in Australia. So I guess they thought it would be funny to use the first disabled senator in Australia and have him get a reluctant lap dance for a bit. It's for a joke, guys. You gotta let them cook, man. You gotta let them be funny. Damn, stop with this cancel culture, you know? Yeah, no, this is crazy. Wow. You can't. Okay. There's a couple things now I need to break down. They're listing these different services, right? Tarot readings, whatever the fuck else, lap dances, as though NDIS covers anything and everything under the sun, which it certainly does not. The NDIS barely covers necessities. You can ask anyone who accesses the NDIS and they'll tell you they're not living luxuriously because of the NDIS. Another thing is that they're definitely, I got to stand up for my fellow workers. If I'm getting money from the NDIS and I'm a worker, and I think I deserve workers' rights, then I feel like sex workers deserve the same amount of respect as people working in the economy as anyone else. And I don't know if that's controversial. I don't want to get canceled for being pro sex work. Ooh, but these gals are doing a job, providing a service, and I don't see why they shouldn't be at least treated with dignity. Now, there is a question of whether or not these workers should be able to be compensated by public funding. That's a conversation that we can have, and that's something that can be discussed. If you wanted to ask me, I think that if they're workers who are participating in the local economy and part of the community, and what they're providing is a service that could benefit the life of someone with a disability, personally, I have no problem with those workers, sex workers, being able to access NDIS funding. That's my opinion. It may be controversial and it might not be shared by everyone, and that's okay. But something that is important to clarify is that there is not this epidemic of sex workers getting paid by the NDIS. That is just fundamentally not true. I'm not going to pretend like there might not be scenarios where people with disabilities would like to access sex work. That happens. That's a reality. And if that does happen, I think that there would be an understandable conversation about whether or not their support funding might be able to, cover the invoice or whatever the hell. I don't know those situations. I haven't been in those situations. Editor's note here. I want to point to this Guardian article that lays out NDIS funds may be used to pay for sex workers' court rules. That actually lays out a case where a woman with multiple sclerosis did sue the NDIS, arguing in favor of sex work that she was receiving be covered by the NDIS. And the court actually ruled unanimously in favor of her case, thus setting the precedent that in some cases, sex work can be covered under the NDIS. To have this hubris to judge it as though the joke here is that sex work is degenerate, right? That's the point that they're trying to make here, which to me is insane, dumb. And also it's okay, the point of the NDIS is to help the people accessing it to better integrate and better access the society around them. And there are plenty of things other than sex work that you can talk about that could achieve that, right? So let's say if you're covering a pottery class or a cooking class or just sorts of things that can actually functionally help people interact better with their society. I think those things are great. And I think funding them is a benefit to our whole society because yes, it's an individual using that money to benefit themselves. But do we not find value in knowing that everyone in our society is taken care of, that everyone is secure, that someone can access their fellow community members and chat to friends in a cooking class or just be around other people? Should we not be proud that we are enabling a society to allow that? Or do we want this approach, which is cut it off, get them out, put that money away, and hopefully the people with disabilities will go away too. That's what the ideology is that I'm getting, at least. It's like, we want these people to go away. To do that, we're going to try and like not give them any more money and hope that that means they go away, which, by the way, is not going to make them go away. People with disability have always existed and they're always going to exist. And why do you think the NDIS was created in the first place? Because we just decided that actually it's time to acknowledge the people that live in our society and are trying to make it and interact in our society on a daily basis. We thought, oh, maybe we should acknowledge that and maybe we should embrace that as part of our society, give local community members a chance to become workers, to support these people, to make a living. Like me, that's what I do. Yeah, I'm biased, but I see nothing wrong with that. I think that that is far, far, far better than the alternative, which is to tell these people to like fend for yourself, you know?
Like this 3-night respite on the Gold Coast with a 3-park super park. Why pay $8 grand when the taxpayer will pay 15? You've got to get in quick.
Yeah, so this is another one of those things where it's like, I'm not even going to fact check this because they don't provide any sourcing or examples of how this is real. Ask anyone who is on the NDIS. And by the way, these people probably don't know anyone on the NDIS, but if you did ask anyone on the NDIS, yeah, how many holidays have they been on funded by the NDIS? Come on, man, get the hell out of here. Like, what are you talking about? Everyone who knows anything about disability funding knows that that's ridiculous. Like, they're just fear-mongering. They're not even saying anything accurate. They're just being like, what if people with disabilities went on holiday? Ooh, you know, it's like, oh my God, wow, terrifying.
Because this rot will not last forever. So come with us and join the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Scheme.
Okay, so that's Pauline Hanson's Please Explain. They have a whole animation team, I guess, and it's like, that's, you know what? It really is just depressing. Yeah, so that's that video. I think we broke it down pretty well, folks. I think we went down through most of what we had to do. Yeah, I want to remind you that this video was released on Good Friday of all days, which is just insane. Shitting on people with disability on the Lord's Day. So that's the Pauline way, folks. I hope I kind of gave you some info that might help you if you weren't aware of this topic. I know that NDIS can be confusing, and I'm not going to pretend like every ordinary Australian should know what it is or should understand where that money goes. That's fine. I just hate when politicians like this exploit the fact that a lot of people don't know really what the NDIS is. And they use that to try and say, okay, we're going to put an idea in your head that this NDIS is like big, scary. It's going to ruin your life. It's going to ruin Australia. You know, these people are crazy. And that's why you got to have somebody like me to come in, talk about it and rip them to shreds and tell you guys what's what. So thank you very much. I thought that this video was something, like I said, as someone who works in the disability industry and sector, I felt like I had a little bit of authority to speak on this topic. I think the NDIS is not perfect at all. I would love to talk about ways I think it could be improved in some way. You know, that's another video. Today we were just mocking an ableist. And I think that's what we did. So thanks for sticking around. I hope you had fun. Hope you learned a little bit. You may have opened your perspective just a bit and hopefully closed off your perspective to the craziness with Pauline. If you enjoyed that, stick around for some other videos. We like to talk about all sorts of random things on this channel, things that just happen to interest me. So if you want to see that, tune in next time for something totally different. And I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.